Hi class, my name is Coleman Hagar and I would like to welcome you to my presentation. I'm talking about my next steps in developing culture, and more specifically the culture that I am currently living in, and hoping that I get to live in the future. Today we're going to be talking about the current culture that I'm experiencing, the future culture that I may be experiencing, some things that the culture that I'm living in kind of include, the goal of the culture that I'm talking about, and then some resources that I want to be utilizing moving forward after this class to really embrace culture and learn more about culture as a whole. But to begin, the current culture that I want to talk about, and that's the culture that I'm currently living in. I started attending Central Christian Church at a very young age. I've been there for about 18 years now and grown up there. It's been a very great church to me and my family. And I began to serve as a junior high leader my junior year in high school. And in this serving, I really got a call from God telling me to go into full-time ministry, now specifically youth ministry, and I'm working towards that goal as we speak. Excuse me. But the team that I'm working with, the student team, we're really working to develop this new culture in CSM, and CSM stands for Central Student Ministries. And this new culture is really focused on leading students to fully own and discover a relationship with Christ. And this is a culture that I'm really excited to be a part of, and it's something that I don't only see beneficial in CSM, but I see beneficial in the world that we're living in. And it's something that I really want to live out and be a part of. And with that being said, moving forward, the second kind of culture I'm living in, it's funny, I often look at my life as like I have two things really going on, or three things really going on: school, my job, and then working at church. But my job, I've been working at Dutch Rose Coffee for 3 years now. It's the extremely busy coffee shop that everybody talks about, and it's a blast. But I really began to develop some really deep roots at the shop that I work with and work at, and I've gotten to know a lot of really cool people by working there. And I've really created some cool relationships. And in that time, God has really called me to share Jesus at work, whether it be with the people I work with or the customers that I interact with every day. We have regular customers that come through every day, and we really get to know these people. But similar to CSM, it's really the culture that I want to create at Dutch Bros is a culture where people can come in and fully own and discover their own relationship with Jesus. I want to help develop this foundation of the foundation of this culture, and support the people who are already developing this foundation. I have a couple of friends that I've worked with, and we've kind of talked about this before, but this idea of sharing who Jesus is and creating creating a space where people can come and be a part of and feel comfortable asking questions. And I don't see Dutch Rose as a long-term thing. I see it as a short-term thing as I'm in college and working to make money in it, but it's turned into a really fun thing. But when I move on from that, I still want to be able to feed into that culture and help develop that culture. And I found this quote in one of our resources, an online resource from the library. And human thought and behavior are affected by their environmental conditions rather than their biological makeup. And I love this quote because it's talking about their environmental conditions. So if we can really change the environment of this stand that I work at into this place where people can come and fully own and discover their relationship with Jesus, then that is going to be what affects them, and it's not the biological makeup that they have. And I just thought that quote was amazing. And as far as my future culture, it's because of what I'm learning in this class and at Central, and I'm able to develop this idea of what kind of a culture I want to be a part of in the future, and what culture I want to help develop and pour time into and pour effort into and really kind of cultivate. Again, because of this class, I'm able to see things that I wouldn't have been able to see before about culture. And whether this is happening in a ministry setting or at Dutch Rose, I want to live in a culture that reflects the actions and the way of life that Jesus lived. I want my myself and the people around me and the things that we do and everything that accumulates into what a culture is to reflect who Jesus is and how he lived. And again, I found this, it's a great quote. Culture may be considered to be a particular set of conditions by which civilization influences how the instinctual drives will be expressed. In the part of this quote that I really like is the instinctual drives. It's our natural instinct to do what we want to do, and those are the things that will come to life. And I think that Jesus and his way of life should be what our natural instincts, what our instinctual drives should be based around. I think that the more we study and the more we're surrounded by Jesus and who he is and what he did, and we experience that as a community, as a culture, that will be the basis of our decision making, and that's going to be what comes to the surface, so to speak, in the culture. That's going to be what's expressed in the culture, as the quote says. Now, what does this culture include? I keep saying culture, but what does this thing include? Again, I want to create a culture where people can come and fully own and discover a relationship with Christ. It's something I want to do for the rest of my life. It's something that I've been called to do for the rest of my life, and I want to live that out and live in an area and around the community that is also living that out. And this includes creating a space where people can feel welcomed, loved, and a part of a family. Again, this community aspect. I think that one of the coolest things about a culture is it's a place for people to go and learn, and just really feel welcomed and loved. And that's what I want my culture kind of to be. And it requires deep, well-rooted relationships that encourage growth and hold each other accountable to upholding the goal at hand. And what I mean by this is I don't want these surface-level relationships where I don't know the people I'm surrounded by. I want to develop really deep and well-rooted relationships with the people that are around me and the people that are living in the same culture as me, so we're able to do the goal at hand. And I'll talk about what the goal is. But with those relationships, we're able to do so much more than, instead of having a somewhat shallow relationship. And then it's also going to be a support system for all the people who are a part of the culture. So if you're in the culture, we're here to support you. We're here to love on you and to help you with whatever you need and whatever you're walking through. Again, just that family-like feeling of being loved and supported. And then there's always going to be an open invitation, and there will always be a seat for someone looking for a culture to be a part of. And this one's really important because you oftentimes see people wandering off and kind of leaving what they know because it's not necessarily what they agree with. And to have a culture be welcoming is it's a really good feeling, because being cultureless, so to say, it could be a very scary thing. So I want this to be an open place where people can come and experience what we're doing. And then ultimately the goal is to create a culture that encourages the people within to fully own and discover their relationship with Jesus Christ. And the heart behind this goal is to grow the kingdom of God and create disciples and continue to do so. And again, this quote is amazing. Culture is not behavior, but rather a particular organization of symbols, categories, and concepts that give meaning to the world. And I see this, and it's so powerful because it gives meaning to the world, and the symbols and categories and concepts that are going to be a part of this culture that I want to create is going to give meaning to the world, and this meaning is going to be rooted in Jesus, and there's going to be aspects of Jesus in everything that we do, and that's what the world is going to see, and hopefully encouraged to get to know who Jesus is more. Some future reading that I would like to do. The Hero Factor, How Great Leaders Transform Organizations and Create Winning Cultures. I wanted to read this because it's from a secular perspective. It's a business book, and I'm in no way, shape, or form interested in going into business, but I wanted to see what useful things can be taken from this book and put into the cultural setting that I'm in, that is a church. But I wanted to see what's in this book that can be somewhat translated, or maybe kind of align with what Jesus's culture would look like, and see those things and kind of learn from those things, and also learn from the things that maybe don't necessarily align with what Jesus's culture would look like, just to be aware of those things. And this book highlights the importance of having having clear and strong values, and encourage you to stand strong in them. And just that right there, the highlight of the book, I think that's so important in a relationship with Jesus, to having a clear understanding of who he is, believing strongly in what he believes in, and how he lives, and then again just standing strong in that, and being confident in that. And then a future podcast that I wanted to try out is called The New Normal. The New Normal tells the story of a Syrian refugee as they begin to adapt their new lives in Europe. Told by only refugees, there's no narrator. Each 30-minute track is like an intimate and moving audio diary. And I think this is such a cool concept, because you're hearing from these people who have been taken from their culture, been taken from what they know, their homes, and being placed into a completely new and unfamiliar one. And that phrase, culture shock, I want to really kind of hear about that what that culture shock is like, but also at the same time how these people who are leaving their culture, excuse me, these people who are leaving their culture are trying to maintain what they know, and if there's any push and pull in that, and if there's any clashing with culture, and just kind of experience on a very unfamiliar level, culture shock, and how these people go about adapting to a whole new culture very quickly. And to conclude everything, I just want to say, because of this class, I've become very aware of what culture really is, and how it affects the surrounding world, and what it does for people. Culture itself has such an influence, and if a culture is developed into a healthy atmosphere, it can influence the world in a very positive way. And that positive way for me and for us is Jesus, and showing people how he lived and what principles he lived by day, and encouraging people to become part of that. And Jesus is the culture I want to be a part of. I think oftentimes when you see the word culture, I like to replace it with the word Jesus, just because I think Jesus in and of himself is a way of life and a way of living, and it's a way of life and a way of living I want to be a part of and share with the world, and really kind of develop. I don't have to develop the way of life that Jesus lived, but I want to help people develop understanding that way of life and how he lived. Finally, these are my resources. I used the same website, but different articles found from the ACU library. I found the book that I wanted to read off of a Forbes list, talking about the best cultural transformation books for business people. And then I found the podcast on a website talking about just being culturally aware of what is happening around the world, and ended up finding that podcast that looked very interesting. But I just want to say thank you first and foremost for putting together this class and putting together all the resources and materials. It's been amazing. I was hesitant is the wrong word, but I was unsure of what I was going to be learning kind of going into this class. But coming out of it, I'm very, very blessed to be able to read these resources and learn and gain knowledge about this topic, because it is such an important topic. And like I said, culture has so much influence in the world. But yes, I would like to thank you. This concludes my presentation on my next steps into developing what culture is, and what my culture is. And again, I'd like to thank you.